Hey, thanks for tuning in to watch this flipped Civics video. Say hello to my friend James. Hi, James. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about the Electoral College, just some basics. The Electoral College, if you don't already know, is how we choose our president and the lucky individual that gets to live in this very nice abode. Get out your notes and be ready to follow along with the Prezi. Here we go.
Electoral. Electoral College. We've got a tale to tell.
Alright, so today we're going to be talking about the Electoral College. And our essential question is, how does the Electoral College select the President and the Vice President of the United States? That may seem a little strange. Don't the people elect the President? Well, no. The people do not elect the President. We vote for who we would like the Electoral College to elect, but it's an indirect election. So first of all, what is the Electoral College? Each state chooses a slate or a group of electors that's chosen by the popular vote. So on election day, we all go and vote, and the ballot, you don't actually vote for, example, Barack Obama or Mitt Romney. You vote for electors for Barack Obama or electors for Mitt Romney. And then the group who gets the most votes gets to cast their vote in the Electoral College. So the electors meet to vote for president and vice president. And whoever wins the popular vote in the state usually gets all of the state's electoral votes. This is called a winner-take-all system. And it leads to targeting densely populated states, or we call them big states, meaning they have a lot of people, for campaigning. But candidates have to pay attention to smaller states or less populated states as well, because those electoral votes can make a big difference in a tight election. How many votes does each state have, you ask? Well, the number of electors that each state has is based on the size of the state's congressional representation, which is partially based on the state's population. So here's a formula. It's the number of representatives in the House of Representatives. Every state has at least one. Virginia has 11. Plus 2 senators. That would give Virginia 13 electoral votes, or a minimum of 3 electoral votes for any state. The requirements for a majority vote to win in the Electoral College favors a two-party system. It's very difficult to have one candidate get a majority, which is 270 electoral votes, if there's multiple political parties besides just the two, Republicans and Democrats. So here's how it works. Steps to become a president and get to live in the White House. First, registered voters cast their vote in the general election. This is usually on the first Tuesday of November. And then votes are counted in each state. The candidate with the majority of votes wins all of the state's electoral votes. And remember, there's a total of 538 electoral votes. We get that number because there's 435 members in the House of Representatives. There's 100 senators. Plus, since the minimum that any state gets is 3 votes, the people that live in Washington, D.C., they get 3 electoral votes as well. Candidate must win a majority of the electoral votes to win, and that means that the candidate has to get 270 electoral votes to win the election. Here's a couple scenarios. Let's say a candidate wins the popular vote but loses the electoral vote. He or she does not become president. If a candidate loses the popular vote but wins the electoral vote, he or she becomes president. If there's a tie, the election is decided by the U.S. House of Representatives, and each state gets 1 vote. So the moral of the story is, the vote in the Electoral College is the vote that really matters. So the candidate that receives the majority of electoral votes nationally becomes the next president of the United States. And while it seems kind of absurd, as few as 11 states can spell victory in the Electoral College. That's kind of highly unlikely due to the politics in each state. Alright, now that you have a few basics down in your notes, watch this TED Ed video for a few more details about the Electoral College. Next time you come to class, if you have any questions, let me know. As always, if you're confused about something at this moment, go ahead and email me at rjbosse@fcpsschools.net. See you in class. Bye-bye.
Most people have heard of the Electoral College during presidential election years. But what exactly is the Electoral College? Simply said, it is a group of people appointed by each state who formally elect the President and Vice President of the United States. To understand how this process began and how it continues today, we can look at the Constitution of the United States. Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2 of the Constitution. It specifies how many electors each state is entitled to have. Since 1964, there have been 538 electors in each presidential election. How did they decide on the number 538? Well, the number of electors is equal to the total voting membership of the United States Congress, 435 representatives plus 100 senators and 3 electors from the District of Columbia. Essentially, the Democratic candidate and Republican candidate are each trying to add up the electors in every state so that they surpass 270 electoral votes, or just over half of 538 votes, and win the presidency. So how do states even get electoral votes? Each state receives a particular number of electors based on population size. The census is conducted every 10 years, so every time the census happens, states might gain or lose a few electoral votes. Let's say you're a voter in California, a state with 55 electoral votes. If your candidate wins in California, they get all 55 of the state's electoral votes. If your candidate loses, they get none. This is why many presidential candidates want to win states like Texas, Florida, and New York. If you currently add up the electoral votes of those 3 states, you would have 96 electoral votes. Even if a candidate won North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, Wyoming, Vermont, New Hampshire, Connecticut, and West Virginia, they would only gain 31 electoral votes total from those 8 states. Here's where it can get a little tricky. On a rare occasion, like in the year 2000, someone can win the popular vote but fail to gain 270 electoral votes. This means that the winner may have won and collected their electoral votes by small margins, winning just enough states with just enough electoral votes, but the losing candidate may have captured large voter margins in the remaining states. If this is the case, the very large margins secured by the losing candidate in the other states would add up to over 50% of the ballots cast nationally. Therefore, the losing candidate may have gained more than 50% of the ballots cast by voters, but failed to gain 270 of the electoral votes. Some critics of the Electoral College argue the system gives an unfair advantage to states with large numbers of electoral votes. Think of it this way. It is possible for a candidate to not get a single person's vote, not one vote, in 39 states or the District of Columbia, yet be elected president by winning the popular vote in just 11 of these 12 states: California, New York, Texas, Florida, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Ohio, Michigan, New Jersey, North Carolina, Georgia, or Virginia. This is why both parties pay attention to these states. However, others argue that the Electoral College protects small states such as Rhode Island, Vermont, and New Hampshire, and even geographically large states with small populations, like Alaska, Wyoming, and the Dakotas. That's because a candidate can't completely ignore small states, because in a close election, every electoral vote counts. There are certain states that have a long history of voting for a particular party. These are known as safe states. For the past 4 election cycles, in 1996, 2000, 2004, and 2008, Democrats could count on states like Oregon, Maryland, Michigan, and Massachusetts, whereas the Republicans could count on states like Mississippi, Alabama, Kansas, and Idaho. States that are teetering between parties are called swing states. In the past 4 election cycles, Ohio and Florida have been swing states, twice providing electoral votes for a Democratic candidate and twice providing electoral votes for a Republican candidate. Think about it. Do you live in a safe state? If so, is it a Democratic or Republican safe state? Do you live in a swing state? Are your neighboring states swing or safe? Is the population in your state increasing or decreasing? And do not forget, when you're watching the electoral returns on election night every 4 years and the big map of the United States is on the screen, know that the magic number is 270 and start adding.